Too. I got to look at my notes and see what we're doing today. The title of today's notes is Our Destination. Now I want to tell you a little bit about what I learned about our brain. Here's what I learned. I'm not very smart. But it's amazing what our brain can do automatically. But have you ever realized that when something don't happen your way, you always think negative? And let me give you an example. You know, your best friend is going home and you say, call me when you get there, and they don't call. And you call them 6 times and they don't answer. What do you think? It's negative. I got to tell this story on Kathy. We've got this app that's called 360. And anybody who signs up on it, you track them. Yeah, I caught my mother-in-law going 75 miles an hour the other day. Of course, when we went on vacation, it caught me doing 93, so I'm not saying anything. I'm just keeping up with traffic. But now, where we live, it's just, I think, maybe 5 or 6 houses to a stop sign. You turn left. It's one house, you turn right for her to go to work. Well, I decided I'd see where she was at on her trip to work. She leaves about 7, and she was at the stop sign for 20 minutes. Now, how many of you going to think, oh no, she's had a wreck. The car stopped and won't start. All this negative stuff. And I'm like, this app is slower than I am. It'll catch up in a minute. And it did. She was fine. But our brain is geared. When we present it with a situation, it will automatically start thinking. I'm going to give you this example. If it gets really cold here, do you have any idea how we could make this warm? Now you think about that for a few moments. Let's come over and see what we got today, Tegan. Come on in. Yeah, just tell us about you and your horse and what we're doing today.
All right, my name is Clarice Bean. Probably a lot of y'all know me. I just got this mare in Thanksgiving. She is wonderful under saddle. She's an opinionated mare. And
an opinionated mare?
I loaded her by myself this morning after we self-lunged for about 20 minutes because she didn't want to get caught. She does not like meds by mouth. Like, I can't warm her. I had a hard time giving her Dorm for the fireworks, and she does not like needles. So, a little hard to get a vet out if I need something done. So, we're here to see if we can maybe get a little bit more work with a syringe in her mouth or close to her mouth without her having a bad experience.
What does a bad experience look like?
Well, I can play with her mouth right now with my hands, but if I bring a syringe or anything that looks like a tube or warmer, she cranes her head all the way around to the right. Yes, avoidance. And I can't lip chain her, and I'm not a fan of lip chaining, but I can't do anything strong with her. I can't do anything strong with her. And I'm 57, and I'm too old to deal with certain things.
Now, wait a minute. I'm 71.
But I like her, and I have her for a year to decide if I want to keep her or not. So.
Okay, can I give you a tip?
Yeah.
I learned this from my wife. I learn a lot from my wife. All the good things come from her.
So suspicious.
No, here's something that I learned from her, and it works in most things in life. Where she works for the DOT, they go through a lot of people. And when they hire somebody, they're on like a 90-day trial.
A year.
A year?
Yeah, it's a long time.
Well, here's what she found out. If you don't like them the first 30, you ain't going to like them. If you don't like them the first 30...
I like her under saddle.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to work with her.
She's 5 with a 2-year-old mentality in many cases.
Okay. Did you happen to watch last week's sermon?
I did not.
Okay. Y'all can go sit over there. We can talk about it. Tegan, if you'll help her out. Because wasn't it last week that we had kind of the same thing? It was an older horse with a 2-year-old mentality. So where does that happen? It starts right there. Start growing them up. If you leave a child, he'll be a child forever. So it's our job to give them responsibilities. And that's how you grow children up. I like the idea. See, knows nothing about where I am. Don't care where I am. And I'm just going to say, I'm over here. That's all I'm going to do. I'm over here. Man, it's so much. If you missed Kathy's Bible recap class, several of us are reading through the Bible with this recap, and it makes you think. But what this does better than any Bible reading for the year I've ever been in is it makes you look for God. Where is God in this? If you're not reading it, you can still come to class and get a lot out of it. But this is what I want her to do. Look for me. Forget about out there. Look for me. And we're just going to walk around. It's something that Kathy picked up on last week's deal. The horse was, that 2-year-old mentality, like, that's as far as I want to lead. I'm done. That's where they're at. So it's our job to get them to look for me. But Kathy brought up something that I know, but I don't put words to it, is Cesar Millan. He's a dog trainer. It's about the pack leader, and that's what we want to be. We want to be the herd leader. And horses sometimes will follow well. And she picked up later on in the sermon last week that this horse last week that came in like this, like what's going on everywhere. But when I led it, it dropped its head and followed. How many of you are good at following, but you're not good at being still? When you get still, and that horse did it. When it was following me, its head was down and it was following. If you watch Cesar Millan, those dogs have to get into a following mode. I'm following. I'm following. That's what Jesus said, follow me. And we're pretty good at it until we stop, and then they start looking all around again. That's what, we've gotten better, and I say we, the church, the people who hear what I say, about be still and know that I'm God. We've got better about being still with our feet, with our body. Man, how hard is it to make your mind be still? Now, I'm going to tell you, my mind does not turn off. It don't. I envy, for one, Kathy's brother. He says, I can just turn mine off and it's blank. And I thought, yeah, I know. But I can't turn mine off. And some horses are that way. They're always thinking about something. So what I learned, I got time. I want to do some more leading just to get this lead.
Skipper, will you check your antenna on your box and make sure it's not covered up?
How many of you know the better you follow Christ, the easier things are? Now, in this study, we're finding out with Job, he was a righteous, upright man, but man, everything that could happen bad to him happened to him. When you follow Christ, don't mean that everything's going to be great. It means that God says, I'll never forsake you or leave you. I will go with you through the storm. That's what it means, but we're just kind of... See, this means nothing. So what does that tell me? I'm not very high in the pecking order. Because when one horse backs up to another horse, they move. Okay, don't like shots, don't like veterinarians, don't like anything in its mouth. Do you say don't like or scared of? Which would it be? Keep talking.
And not like.
Do any of you ever have to do something you don't like? That's part of life. Now, Tegan and Debbie have taught me so much about being kinder and sweeter to horses. And it's like, oh, they don't feel good today. I'm like, neither did I, but I went to work. In the working world, oh, I'm sore. Yeah, me too. Let's go. But it's a difference in people. One of the things, Tegan, you chime in on this. I'm real big about making sure that horse will get his hips. And it's one of those things, like the more you chase their hips, the more their face is looking at you. Now, we can spend all this time when they look the other way and pull them to look at us. But it's a proven fact. When they look the other way, when I come over here, and we're going to see it in just a minute, because when you get ready to halter them or do anything to them, they want to turn their head away from you. Well, you've either got to pull their head or they have to bring their head to you. I can make a sermon out of that. We turn our head away from God. Let me give you a hint. If God wants you to look at him, he can make it happen. But he don't want to make us love him. He wants us to love him for who he is. Not for what he can do or will do, but for who he is. He wants that love. I want its head to come because it brought its head to me. Not that that's the answer I want. There it is.
Looks like there might be a rear in there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Now, you got to be really careful, and you can't. Let me get over where you can see. Our natural tendencies is to want to hold on to the halter. And let me tell you, a horse can pick your entire body off the ground before you can turn it loose. I've actually heard stories of people getting their shoulder dislocated because the horse threw their head up and dislocated their shoulder because you can't turn it loose fast enough. Now, if I do, and there's several times, I put the tip of my finger in. But you're not going to see me grab it like that. I'll put the tip of that finger in, so if they do something, it's okay. So one of the things, every horse tells us where they're at, what they will accept. Normally I do this when I scare them, they back up 25 feet. The same way with this. She's going to tell me what she will accept. And then I start from there. This is something it'll accept. And I said, okay, that's all I wanted. You take a little bit and you build on it. Now, Debbie's got the microphone, and whenever I'm going to play a little bit and y'all talk. But if it don't want anything in its mouth, in fact, I can't even touch its mouth. She can. Maybe she thinks I'm a veterinarian. We had the discussion last night. If your horse acts up around a smell, you just rub a little Vicks in her nose. I'm over here. Over here. Now, if I was a horse, I would not have been that gentle. I would have bit her or kicked her. That's horse language. I was being kinder because you think I'm being rude. Okay, Debbie, what are some different ways that we can get this mouth issue better?
First, part of what you're doing is good, getting your hands close to it. Also, have something in the syringe that they like. Maybe honey, something that will get them to start accepting it. One of the other things is if there's a way to have them take it another way other than mouth. But the true purpose is get in the mouth. Can you rub the end of her nose? Can you close your fingers around her nostrils?
You get into questions. I'll do the training.
So what are some other ideas? I was giving you ideas with the questions. Any other ideas that would be helpful to get any wormer into a mouth? Applesauce. That's good. Thanks, Stephanie.
Okay, did y'all notice I got a finger in her mouth? That was my first step. My second step is to dip my finger in applesauce that we had it planned. But I'm going to do it with my finger. It's like, all right, I see something's up. Look here. Look what we get. Look what we get. Oh, what does that smell like?
Now remember, some wormers smell like apple.
But notice, I'm not going to try to hold her still. Now, if you see, there's that avoidance. Oh, there's a fence there, isn't there? Now, this is something I didn't do just because I like a challenge. Before you try to get your horse to be still to do anything, make them want to be still. Now, I know you've said that you lunge it. There's different ways of lunging. I'm preparing it right now for a shot. This is all avoidance. This is a habit.
That she's gotten away with for a very long time.
Now, let me tell you, people, I know it's going to happen, and I'm not responsible. If you stick your finger in the wrong spot, you have lost a fingernail. Because that's where their grinders are at. And they will grind it down to nothing. But it is a start. Back to different ways of doing it. I never used one, but they actually make a bit that is hollow and has a hole in the middle. And you put the bit on, and then you stick the syringe on the outside of the bit and squirt the medicine in the bit. And it goes out. Now, if you've got, let's just use this illustration. If you've got 2 ounces of medicine, you have to have either 2 ounces and then 1 or 2 ounces of applesauce to flush the bit out, or part of your medicine will stay in the bit. You know, if I had to do it, I would just put applesauce in the syringe first, then put the medicine on top of that, and then squirt it. Now, you may have a tube of paste. You know, you just squirt I would squirt a little, take another syringe, squirt some applesauce in it, get them to liking that. If you would do that every day, I think it was Debbie years ago. Wasn't it you that you taught your horse to pick the bit up out of your hand?
By putting feed on your hand,
You
put
put
the bit
the
on
bit
it.
in the feed, and they'll just reach down there and pick the bit up. You can teach them to do anything. I wish God would say that about us. But when it comes to shots, you know, I grew up the old way where you took the needle off of the syringe and I held it like that, and then you hit right here. 1, 2, 3, boom. and they don't even know it's coming. Now, some of the vets will say, oh, I don't want to do that. You're disturbing all the stuff that's in the skin, and you're putting it inside their body. So, no, okay, what we would rather do is let's brush them before the vet gets there and just disturb all those little microparticles that was sleeping. Hey, come on, just stick it in there. You know, but if how many of you know if you've got a splinter and somebody else is going to take it out? I know Kathy's daddy did this. My daddy did it. If you got a splinter right here, if you'll take one hand and pinch it as hard as you can, you don't even notice the needle. That is, if you're not looking. I told Gary Jones, a good friend of mine, I had a splinter one time, and we couldn't get it out, and I was trying to dig it, and I couldn't get it out. And I said, Gary, you got to help me here. So he went, I needed to go get stitches when he got done. You know, you got to be careful who you ask. But one of the things is I keep coming back to this. It goes back to that trick horse training. The book I read that trained trick horses, they trained 1 hour a day. But it was 15 minutes 4 different times. You don't get them used to this right now 1 or 2 times and then think it's going to go good later. Oh, the dreaded applesauce is coming back.
So, Skipper, just so you know that because of the angle that you're doing it, we can't really see what you're doing with her mouth, so you need to verbalize what you're doing, please.
I'm sticking my finger just inside my lips, and I'm not sticking it in straight. I'm sticking it in like that.
Like a hook.
The question was, is that the finger I just stuck in the horse's mouth? No, this one is. But like I said, if you stick it in that way, you get bit. If you curl it and go right on the inside of their lips, you don't. It don't like applesauce. It needs some Vicks in its nose.
Skipper, the other good thing about curling your finger in the mouth is that when you do the syringe, if you put the syringe straight up the side as well, you have a chance of getting it further back.
Yes.
So that when you squirt it, it stays in their mouth.
What's the difference with a little bit of applesauce? Here, I'll take it.
I'm wondering how much of it is just you have intent now and she feels that change of energy.
She's fixing to feel some change of energy, is what I can tell you. I'm wanting her to kind of get sideways here. What's the sideways doing? I'm wanting her to bend her body and give me that nose. Now, what was that for? Just because you ignored me. Ignore God and see what happens. Oh, that was a much better response. Only problem is my applesauce keeps falling off my finger. Okay. I didn't work too hard this morning. Do we have any more ideas?
So one thing I've taught my horses is when I put my hand over their nose, it keeps their head down and they're soft and they give to that. So while that in and of itself is not a solution to accessing their mouth, it does make them soft for my next request of accessing their mouth.
I am 110% with her. Before I try to give a horse any medicine, it's going to lower its head and present me its face. Because if I don't have control over that, I'm not going to have control over this. You know, but this is something you can do every time you put the halter on. Lower their head, and you can teach them. You know, I don't know if it lowers its head. Maybe it does. But that, you know, I would start off with lower the head. For me, when I went in without a halter to halter my horses, I lowered their head right there.
A question that was asked was, has she had her teeth done recently? Is there a possibility of a teeth issue?
She's had them done this year.
Yeah, I can tell that teeth may be an issue, but this is a lot more of a habit than it is a pain. You know, when it just comes when I got applesauce on my finger. But this would, like Tegan says, this is definitely where I would start. I would want obedience right here. You know, give me your head right here. And see how she's mouthing it? Does she mouth a bit? That was a question, Tegan.
No.
One of the things, it's not often, but sometimes, you know, Tegan will call me and give me an idea of what we got. And, you know, I like this because we haven't dealt with it, and I'm sure a lot of people have this trouble. But when it comes to a vet, how many vets do you know that they walk to their horse like this? Well, guess what? If your vet's going to do it, you need to do it. Get them to where this is okay. I'm going to give you a shot right here, buddy. You okay? Okay, let's go. On to the next horse. I told Tegan this story this morning. I'm from the cowboy world, and let me tell you, that was the only world I knew, so I didn't know how different we were. I'm not going to say it was always in a good way. To be a cowboy and work with wild cows, many of them, it's a challenge, maybe a thrill. You know, some cowboys are known as thrill seekers. For other people that are not cowboys, they come up with a quote, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. But it was just like the thing to do is to get to rope something. Now I'm going to tell you, my favorite thing to do was be running wide open to rope something that weighed more than my horse. That don't sound very smart, does it? But it's like catching a shark on a fly rod. It's exciting. You never know what's going to happen. But when, Kenny, you can relate to this. How many times you've been in a set of cow pens or in a trap that's right outside the pens, and the one you want jumps out? That's why you wanted it. It kept jumping out. Well, the cowboys are going to race to get to see who ropes the cow, the bull, whatever it is. Now, if your horses are all tied to the fence, and now you want to see who can rope the cow first, they run to their horses. If you can't run to your horse, it just gave me an advantage because I can run to mine. And that's all it takes. You just run to them until they stop, you pet them, and you leave. Am I holding her still? Not a bit. But that's how they learn to take that. You never learn from something that you're not exposed to. Yeah, the one horse that I talk so much about because he taught me so much. His name was Duck because he came from Mr. Duck Smith. His name was Gator because he bit Mr. Duck Smith. And Mr. Duck Smith got rid of him. But, you know, long story, his horse taught me the most. He was the hardest I ever trained. But he was one of those that if you jumped, he jumped. If you were 40 feet away and jumped, he jumped. I mean, I was going to be kinder and gentler. And where I come from in the citrus industry, they've got this little black polytubing that they do microjet lines with. And we had tons of it. And I built me a round pen. I actually had to go like this was a 6.5 foot post. Then I would screw another one to it to make it real high. I mean, my round pen was that high. And if I had one plastic tubing, I had 15. The first day, I go in with Duck, and Duck is, they run him on my trailer like a cow. And I took him to the house, and I put him in this round pen, and I was going to be all spiritual. And I got me a chair and my Bible, and I went down and sat in the middle of the pen. I turned the page and it ruffled, and he tore my pen down. That stuff didn't hurt him, though.
Spirituality kind of took a back seat after that.
Well, what happens is for the longest time, he was so sensitive. I tiptoed to him. Easy, buddy. Easy. And he didn't get any better. I talked to every trainer I knew. And I was talking to Jack Henning one day, and Jack says, well, you need to rope a foot. I said, I can lead him by his feet. I've already done that one. We wound up laying him down. I laid him down so much that I could lay him down while I was riding him. But it's all, how do you get them to be obedient in something? It's about getting their mind before you get to the hard things. All of these things we talked about, running to them is preparing them for the vet. Lowering their head, I want to know, are you obedient right here before I get the syringe? And she's telling me she's not. I'm going to do it. That's kind of like some of you come to church, but that's as close as you get to God. I'm going to be obedient, but I don't want to. That's her attitude. Leave me alone. And I'm not even trying to stick my finger in her head. I'm just saying, will you give me your head? And she's saying no. Until you can get control of their head, you're not going to have a lot of control over the things she don't like. I'm Clint Anderson now. You want to move your feet, I'll give you a reason to move your feet. Is that avoidance? You got to tell them no. That's not the right answer. Now, you can do it by getting after them, or you can do it by bumping them. I don't like the bumping them too much. But I want to be over here to where it's obvious. Are you avoiding me, or you got your eye on me?
Skipper, I've also noticed she has a bigger reaction when you hold the noseband of the halter.
When I do what?
When you hold the noseband of the halter.
Okay.
Like maybe that's
the trigger.
That's the trigger.
Okay, what she's saying is if you go to hold her, she has a bigger reaction. One of the biggest problems I see with people, their animals, their children, and their husband. It's a new year. I'm being kinder and gentler to Kathy. I talk about this often because it's so important. Horse training is you have to find a way to tell your horse, yes, that's what I wanted. And no, that's not what I wanted. And you've also got to be able to tell them, never. You know, totally disrespect is a never. You know, just because of the lack of this type of training, she's going to argue with me, and I'll take that. It's part of the lesson. You know, but if she did certain things, there would be a, oh my goodness, never attempt. But like I say, okay, we're always trying to look for applications. How can we get this problem better? And one of them is get them ready for a shot. Their nose back to you.
Every time you pat her neck to prepare for the shot, she turns her head away from you.
Yeah. Avoidance always comes before surrender. My son, when he did something wrong, all at once he got really sleepy. He'd go to bed and go to sleep. If he lied, and that boy, he would, when he grew up, he would tell you, if a lie would keep me out of trouble for an extra hour, I'm doing it. He did not like to get in trouble. But so much of all of these issues is about exposing it to them day after day after day until it means nothing. Wrong answer. Oh, now she's wanting to bite it. But what part of the message today is, if you in your mind can determine what you want, your mind should automatically look for solutions. I don't want to know your idea, but how many of you had an idea how to make this place warmer? You know, our mind just goes there. You know, when you think of something, if you will think, who is it? Which one of those great, Einstein or somebody that said, if I only have an hour to solve a problem, I will think about the problem for 59 minutes. You know, so think about all the different ways you can do it. And just repetition, repetition, repetition. I've said horse training is easy. You know, just get them to do what they don't want to do. And this is a step to just get this close without putting it in. I remember a really, really good Purina trainer years and years and years ago. He was known for riding horses that had never been rode, a lot like Paul Daly. Not Paul Daly. Yeah, Paul Daly. Except for he didn't have a message with it. He was trying to sell Purina. And I happened to work on the ranch that brought him the horse. And there was 5 that they could have brought him. And they took him the worst one. You see, that's the difference between men and women. If a man brings a horse to me, he wants me to fail. If a woman brings a horse to me, she wants me to succeed, and she'll bring her friends to watch. It's just the difference between men and women. But anyhow, this guy saddled his horse, and he bucked so hard he flipped over backwards. And he said, I ride bucking horses, and I can ride him, but he's going to fall down while I do it, and that's going to make a case of possibly injuring me and or the horse. It's not worth it for this demonstration. He's not properly ready for this. So, you know, preparing them to get them ready. I've had, I don't know how many different times I've gone I've drove to North Florida to load a horse. And the woman told me, she said, okay, I've had 5 trainers here. Are you guaranteeing you can load the horse? I said, no, ma'am. But I'm guaranteeing he'll be closer to loading than when I got there. You know, can you guarantee you will handle every situation just right when you pull out on the traffic out there? Or when you get the phone call that's negative and somebody says cancer? See, it's the little steps. I just want get the syringe close.
Do you have anything in it?
Not yet.
Okay.
Oh, we think it's the smell, huh? Now, the deal is never do anything for a horse you wouldn't do for yourself. It's applesauce. You know what's coming, don't you? Okay. We're running out of time. Man, did we say, is this a Mary Gilden?
Thinking maybe she doesn't like applesauce.
She's got some now, though, whether she likes it or not.
Another option is to use peppermint.
I didn't have any of that today.
Truly, it's just find what they like. I've got some horses that love Gatorade, some like iced tea, peppermint. Just if they have something that they like, use it.
Have you ever noticed when they behave, they're always away from you? When I get them on your side where you can see they don't behave, it must have something to do with you. Now, one of the problems that people have is they get the syringe in and it takes 2 hands to hold it. That's a huge problem. Now it's slick. Real slick. I had a rag with me today because I knew I was going to do this. I got it in, but I can't mash the syringe. Oops. She just got a full dose of applesauce. And it's, have a rag somewhere? Who's got my rag?
He's getting them for you.
The issue is like, okay, maybe it's never had applesauce. But have any of you ever taken medicine you didn't like? I mean, like, I don't use that much of an excuse. Now, training-wise, absolutely. They train better if you give them something they like. Thank you, Wiley.
Well, and somebody made the point earlier that some medicine, some paste tastes like applesauce, right? It has that in it. So if it's been a bad experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the horse had a bad experience, associated it with this smell, then it's just learned a bad habit based on what happened next. It's just a bad habit.
Yeah.
It's not that it didn't like applesauce or that you got to use some other kind of workaround. it's that the horse learned a bad habit. Correct?
That is a perfect illustration. And so then we're trying to break bad habits. Now, do you have any bad habits?
Yes.
Are you trying to break them?
Yes.
Okay. Bad
take
habits
them
are
to my
hard to
grave.
break. Have you ever noticed it's hard to break a bad habit? It's even hard to start a new habit. Habits are hard to break. And it takes, years ago they used to say 21 days of doing it the same way every time to change a habit. The research says you don't think about it, but every time you brush your teeth, you start on the left or the right every time. You want to see how hard it is to break the habit, change that. Because your habit's going to go right back to where it always was. But then okay, I got to go the other way. Tying a bow on your shoes. It's a habit how we do it, and habits are hard to change. But it goes back a lot to that approach and retreat, approach and retreat. Now, what am I talking about? You run to them, and then you don't. You run to them, and then you don't. You give them the medicine, then you take it away. And then later on, you give them more. Well, I'm sucking the bottom of that jar. No, we got more here too. I'm like, if she takes that much, it'll be good. Because, and there's so many things that good horses will teach us bad habits. Now, I'll give you an illustration. If I had my good horse, I would stand in front of them and I would reach in right there. And I'd take a bad horse and they paw me right in the chest. Good horses will teach you bad habits. You're saying, I kind of like that applesauce. Hey, give me some more. And you couldn't see it, could you? Wait a minute, I'll get some just for you. And I think the whole thing was letting her understand that this might taste good. And I'm not going to go straight to its mouth. I'm like, can I give you a shot? Come over here, babe. I got some more applesauce for you. Oh, gee whiz, let's take it all. There you go. What are y'all laughing at? Yeah, here's the deal. I got some applesauce in her mouth. But I'm going to tell you, we skipped a lot of steps that I would never skip. They'll be obedient with their head. But after, you thought, man, you're getting after her. But look at her right now compared to the way she was earlier. Now she sees me more as a leader. And
It's all about timing.
yeah, just tell your wife you're the leader of the house and see how it goes. But she has a different frame of mind right now than she had earlier. And that's what it's all about, is trying to connect a horse's mind. And you may not have even liked it when I got after her. But people, that's what horses understand. In the wild, they bite each other and they kick each other, sometimes to death. If it's a stallion over getting a herd, or maybe it's an older mare that the younger mare is, I'm taking over the herd. And there's a lot can be learned. I posted an article, I don't remember who it was from, about when is it time to put a horse or an animal down. And it went back, this article about how it happens in the wild. They will actually expel that animal out of the herd because they know it's their time. And the law of nature says something's got to eat. and you protect the herd by feeding them the dying and the sick. Now that sounds cruel. Take it up with God. He created that. So I think exercise-wise, we know she likes applesauce now. I would do that more. Just being more direct, coming to her, pinch, give a shot. I'm one of those people. I don't think my son-in-law's here today. I can talk about him. Oh, is he? Oh, well, we'll see if he watches the video. This guy is a hunk of a man. I mean, he used to be bad. And women are always attracted to them bad guys. Where was I going with this? Remind me, needles. I actually, how I got back to playing golf, I'd played a little bit, never cared, but my daughter goes off to college and marries a New Jersey car salesman. And I'm like, what? So I was helping him remodel. He was putting new floor in his house in Fort Myers, and I'd had an artificial knee put in, and I said, I'm not bending over, but I will cut them for you. You just call me the links, and I'll cut them. I've done that before. So we were putting up this floor, and I saw golf clubs. I said, you play golf? He said, well, not since I come to Florida, but I play. We started playing together. I wanted to see if he had an anger problem. It's the only reason. He don't. Of course, if you're married to my daughter, you don't have an anger problem and stay there. But he's scared to death of needles. He is a hunk of a man. He is a man's man. He's scared of needles. Now, I'm the type. I can't tell you how many cortisone shots I've had in my knees. I'm like, wait, doc, put the needle in and let me get a picture. I found out people on Facebook don't like that. All right. We're going to wind up here. Here's what happens. Some of us don't have a goal or destination in life, and let me tell you what that's like. The path. What are you trying to achieve in life? And start thinking about, okay, if this is what I'm trying to achieve. Let me tell you how most of us do this. It's the man who went in his backyard and he had one of them big wooden fences, and he took his bow and arrow and he shot the fence, and then he went and drew a bullseye around it. That's what we do in life. We go through life, how many times have you asked somebody how they're doing, and they say, same old, just another day. You see, we have no intention on where we want to be tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year. We got to be intentional about where we want to go, and our brain will start working to help us get there. I actually, before I knew what horse we had today, my notes was for somebody that says, oh, I want a good trail horse. Okay, what are the things we can do to get a good trail horse? Buy a good trail horse. How many agree that's the most important thing? I don't. Take lessons, then buy a good trail horse. Because if you buy a good horse and you handle them wrong, how many of you know you become like the people you're around? If we allow our horses to do the wrong thing, soon they'll be doing the wrong thing, no matter how good a horse you buy. So lessons, learning how to handle different situations is actually more important than buying the good horse. Now, I'm going to say those are the top two things. Years ago, I had my nephew, he was had a boarding stall, and they took youth to all these big horse shows. And he told the people, either you can buy a horse for $50,000 or you can spend $50,000 having them trained. But if you want to win, they're going to be $50,000 horses. Now, most of us not in that class. We just want a good trail horse. But what does that look like? I want him to be able to leave the herd. I want to be able, if another horse runs past me, he don't care. So what type of horse should I buy? people, don't just, I want an Arabian because they're pretty. Don't buy pretty, buy what you want to succeed. So look at the ways that you can get all of that done. In Philippians, we're going to talk about our final destination. In cowboy terms, if we believe in the finished work of Jesus Christ and give our life to Him, our final destination is heaven. If we don't, it's hell. Simple as that. Simple as that. Now, there's a lot can be wrote into that if you believe in the finished work of Jesus Christ. You got it. It only takes 5 minutes to get you saved. It takes a lifetime to live it. The finished works is Jesus died for your sins and conquered death. That's the finished work. When He was on the cross, Jesus said, it's finished. I've completed it. So we're going to talk today about the believers, the born-again believers. I believe born again means that when I give my life to Him, He gives His Spirit to me. That's born again. You know, I'm going to talk to the believers right now. If we look in Philippians 3:20, it says, but our citizenship is heaven. How many of us think that way? You know, we have this tendency. Where you live? Oh, East Brandon? Yeah, I live there, but my citizenship, my name's written in the Lamb's Book of Life. My citizenship's heaven. Let me read it. And we eagerly await a Savior there, the Lord Jesus Christ, whom by the power that enables Him to bring everything under His control will transform our lowly bodies so that they will be like His glorious body. How many of you want a new body? Oh, man. I look forward to that day. I want to be in the presence of God, but I look forward to that new body too. I want to read in Revelations 21, because we're talking about our final destination. It says, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice in the throne saying, now the dwelling of God is with man, and He will live with them. They will be His people, and God Himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, no more mourning, crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. How many of you think heaven's going to be a good place? You see, if you want to come up, I'm going to get a little help right here. If you just bring that stool right over here by me. Try to get where everybody can see. I know it was kind of a bummer last week when we talked about the average age is 78, and we got some people in here that's over that. This is another illustration I had of the same thing. This is 78 inches long. Now the illustration is each inch represents 1 year of life. I've only got about that much life left. Depends on how you calculate it. If you weren't here for last week, you take your age and you divide it by 3.25. And the reason you do that is it will come up to 24-hour clock. It tells you how much time you have left. For those that you were worried, if you're already 78, everything changes. You're going to be 95 now. But here's what I wanted to show you. Yes. Here's what I wanted to show you. Because we look at our earthly life, and this is the same illustration of, this black tape is 78 inches. That's our life. So that's it, right there. But people, this is eternity. Why? are we so concerned about that little small piece when eternity goes on and on? We're so dwelled on this little 78 years, and I quit counting, but every time I do that, that's a lifetime. That's almost 78 inches when I do that. But eternity goes on and on. People, how long is eternity? It goes on and on. I got on and on. How long is eternity? What are you doing to prepare yourself for eternity? The next 2 weeks is going to be about heaven, and next week's going to be about how do we prepare for heaven. Now that you know how long it's going to be, you need to have a better understanding about what are we to do to prepare for it. The following week's going to be about what are we going to do when we get to heaven. Oh, I bet it's a boring place. With my new body. I bet I can sing and dance. But what I wanted you to see today is how short our life is and how big our God is. How short our life is and how big eternity is. Don't worry about the numbers of years you have left here. Worry and think about heaven, about eternity, life everlasting with no tears or pain, with a new heavenly body. But more than that, being in the presence of God. When we start thinking about that, it will change our view on our world here today. That's the whole deal about today's lesson. If we will concentrate and think on our destiny of heaven, it will change how we live these few years here on earth. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you that, man, you are so much bigger than we can imagine. We can't fathom eternity. But God, help us quit looking at our lifespan here on earth. Let us see heaven as our citizenship. Lord, help us to seek you in where you've called us to spend the rest of eternity with you. Lord, every time we get stuck on our life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, every time we get stuck on circumstances here in this world, may we be reminded of how big you are and how big eternity is. Lord, thank you. Thank you for all you've done for us and all you're going to do for us. But more than that, we praise you for who you are, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. In Jesus' name, amen. Men's meeting here tomorrow night, 6:30. Y'all have fun. God bless you.